This is my trusty handy Shure 10-4 good buddy. What's going on? Everybody's bored out of their mind on the Manny mic locker. Let's get out of here. Where we're gonna go eat at? In-N-Out. In-N-Out on Manny. The Manny tour right now. Don't laugh. Well, here's my mic locker, which I've already explained. I moved my studio. So I've got these really cool cases. I actually really love them. They're called SKB cases. These are old. They don't really make them anymore. I don't think you can find them. But they open up. This one is a beater, and it has a compartment in here. So I have some little lavaliers in here, but you might as well start with this one. These are some mics that I'm really enjoying. These are United Twin 87s. These microphones have a vintage sound and a modern sound of 87s, and it is exactly what they say. They're really dark, like ELO, old school with the 87 switch on vintage, and then when you put them on modern, it just opens up the upper frequencies. So I can imagine on vocals it'd be really cool, and I'm actually excited because I've heard Back in Black were done with U87s on the guitar, so I'm going to put these on some drums, on some guitars, and I'll be trying these in the future. These are part of the Manny mic locker. United Twin 87s with a vintage switch and a modern switch. This is my David Bowie AKG D1000. If you look at pictures of like Ziggy Stardust tour, he has these. And these are kind of obviously the dynamics. This is a cheap copy. I know we've always laughed about these, but these are my Radio Shack Realistic Omnis. They cost like $20. They're called 1070s, I think. If you get the ones that are made in Japan, they're better than the ones made in Mexico. Sorry, my brown people, but I'm just being honest with you. Got a 58, which you can always use. So that's case number one. This is my Chavez Ravine 58. As weird as it sounds, because I have really cool mics, my own voice sucks on expensive mics, and it really makes me sad that I'll spend some money on a nice mic and think I'm going to sing on my own record, and I realize that the 58 is the only thing that sounds good with me. So my heart's broken all the time, but I always know because I put the clown nose on it. This is the Manny mic, the one with the clown nose on it. Anyway, so here, one of my two new favorite mics that I have, which I cannot tell you enough about how great they are. This is the Warm Audio Tube 47 Big Boy. Now, they're not paying me to say this, but I'll say on drums in the room, this thing is incredible. It sounds like I have an old Altec Coke bottle, and I was trying out a bunch of mics, only the Mojave M837, which you can hear it, it's a notch up in class sonically, but still, for bang for your buck, you can find these between $400 and $600 and $700, and it's a tube mic, weighs a ton. I use this on drum sounds in the room, and I'll be honest with you, I've searched all kinds of expensive high boutique mics to try to get that sound, and it was only with the Warm Audio and the Mojave M837 and a 1950s Altec Coke bottle that I'm rewarded with a sonicness that I'm like, oh my God, that's so great. So Warm Audio, ridiculous. Here is another mic, one of my favorites. This is the Warm Audio W67. I'll be honest with you, this mic, I don't know if it could be called a 67 because I think it's its own animal. Its tube is just ridiculous. With a little bit of EQ on the API, you can make it sound close to a 67 with a hair loss in the low end. That's the difference. I cannot tell you a better John Bonham mic setup where you put the mic 2 drumsticks above the snare, 2 drumsticks, you put this above the floor tom, kind of looking down at the floor tom, or there's a ratio of where people like them. If you get 2 of these mics and you use them in a classic sense as a single overhead or John Bonham overhead, or even spaced overheads, you'll be rewarded with a vintage, awesome sound that I wouldn't say it even sounds like a 67. I almost wish they would just rebrand it as the ultimate tube mic on a budget, because it just sounds better than most other mics that are way more expensive than this, and it's really affordable. So if you're broke, no joke, go to Guitar Center, go to Craigslist, $400, $700, $800, go to Sweetwater, buy 2 of them on a low payment thing. You will not be disappointed. This is my kind of smaller vintage mic case, SKB as well. I put the cables in here. This mic is my, I guess it's maybe 50s, but it's a RCA BK5. This mic basically is what Soundgarden used on their guitars. I was lucky enough to go over Daniel Lanois's house, and he was singing his new record. This was his vocal mic. And also, it's just one of the greatest ribbon mics. It's a ribbon mic. It's totally ridiculous in how good this mic is. This is a very rare and expensive Beyer 380. These used to be a few $100. They've gone up in price because they're figure 8. You use them for bass guitar and kick drum. Because they're figure 8, you put it in the kick drum, it gets the beater side, and then it gets the side on the outside shell. And because it's figure 8, it's picking up both of the patterns. Super incredible mic if you can find a real one. But also, the reason they stopped making these is that there's actually headphone capsules inside, and Beyer had a brand, I think they were called 770s or something like that. When they ran out of the company that was making their headphones for these, they stopped making these. So you can buy a Beyer TG-X50, I think, identical body, and if you can find the right headphones, you can refurbish your X50 with the 380, and then now you have $1,000 mic for a few $100. Then I'm always talking about my AKG D224E. It's one of the greatest mics I've ever used. It has two elements in it, one in the top, one in the bottom. So as you put this up on a sound source, you get some cancellation. And the quality of this engineering, it weighs a ton. It's like a mini submarine of quality. It's like a Rolex or something. It just sounds incredible. It's one of my favorite mics. It's a dynamic. A must-have for any studio is a Beyer 201. Greatest guitar mic, snare, really great. Like if I have 3 amps up and there's like a banging drummer next door and everybody's making a lot of noise and I put the amp next to the drums, there'll be no drums in this mic, and it just has a great cancellation all around it, but picks up a great guitar sound. It's a Beyer 201. This is my Frank Sinatra AKG D24. The internals are an AKG D19, which are triple the price of this. But this has a bulb on it. If you look at some old Frank Sinatra records, he was singing in it, and that's the mic he was using. It's called the Frank Sinatra mic. This mic, on its sonicness, is incredible. On a female or woman's voice, I haven't found anything that's made me happier than this mic. So a lot of times when I have a super low bassy crooner, or even someone that has like kind of like Kim Deal mid-range, when I use the Frank Sinatra, it just makes me really happy. And this mic, if you can find an AKG D24, I'm going to say $600 to $700 is the average for this one. Problem is, you have to make sure it's working. I know it sounds dumb, like why would I buy a mic that wasn't working? Because you read the small print, and the guy's always like, well, used to have low end, but you know those old mics. Well, guess what? If it doesn't have any low end, it's ruined, and they're hard to find. So if you get one, make sure it's from a reliable source, or your buddy that has a trust fund, he has a lot of mics, and he bros you down a cool mic. The tried and true, everybody should have a Sennheiser 421. For years, this was my kick drum mic. I mean, when I first used this on kick drum, I didn't like it. Producer friend of mine named Robert Carranza, every time I walked up, he had this on the kick drum. And he's one of the best engineers in the city. So I'd be like, okay, I gotta be like Robert Carranza. I gotta get my 421, make it work on the kick. And then suddenly one day my ears just went, oh, that sounds great. And then I was able to move it within the hole, outside the hole, in the front, down. I just got wonderful results on toms, guitars, vocals. You can't go wrong with that, except this clip. That's where you go wrong. You grab it like that, and it falls off, and your mic falls and breaks. I have 2 of these. I think one may be in another case. These are Russian 80s ribbons. They're called Octava 19s. They're all in Russia, and they're $100, $200. They're not a lot, but they don't sound good. Because I re-ribbon my own ribbons and I work on these microphones, you can make these microphones where they sound as good or better. The BK5s are now going up to about $2,000. This is $200. when I put these back to back, there's a little bit more low end in this and a little bit more fidelity. I can only say that I love these microphones and they're affordable, but you do have to get them serviced. You just go buy this mic for cheap, re-ribbon it, and then now you get close to BK5 without spending, you know, you can get a used Honda or you get a BK5, you know. I got a BK5. You should see my car. This mic is an EV, a 667A. This is what you would have used on Cream. If you look at the old videos of Cream, this is, or John Bonham, this was kind of the precursor to the RE20, but these were like on hi-hats, on the toms, on the kick drum. Whenever you see Cream playing, this was it. I have this mic because it's incredible, and once again, it's just another tool in the toolbox, but I really reach for this when I want another hi-hat or a tom or something where no one's going to really bang it or break it, but it's a classic and it really sounds incredible. My friend Thomas Scriven done a session with Ross Robinson, and if you don't know Ross, look him up. He's done he was like the first guy that did Slipknot, Korn, you name it, Ross is like the man. And he had a really eclectic group of microphones that this is actually honestly why I got into Manny's mic locker. I went to my friend Thomas's house and he was recording. He says, you got to use all these mics that Ross, he bought all the same mics that Ross had used. And, ego aside, I had my own set of mics, but I was like, well, let's find out what Ross uses and let's see if we like them. Well, the first mic Ross used was on the hi-hat was this AKG D224E. I just talked about it. When I got back to my studio and I listened to the hi-hats, I'd never heard hi-hats sound so good. Even when they're crashing them or washing them, they were just, it sounded like The Faces by Rod Stewart, which means that, that's a total Beatles mic, so that's definitely 60s. But Ross had this on the guitars, and it's an Omni. Looks like something you would see on a Doors session. I'm sure it is. It's 50s. It's the 50s Altic. 633A Omni. This on a guitar with a 57 or 421 or BK5. Can only say that this is like a smog clearer. If you have a 57, you can imagine it being surrounded with smog. You push this up and the wind blew away all that foggy fuzziness and weird stuff, and you get the essence of the amp and the speaker. And that's what this mic does. It's once again like all the Altics and AKGs. My buddy bought 10 of these and he was stoked. And as he tested them, only 2 of them worked properly. You can clean them. You can bring them back from the dead. It sounds incredible. Definitely one of my favorite mics, and it's vintage. This is a brand new company called Vanguard. So it's a dual capsule mic. Obviously with 2 capsules, you would have 2 cables coming out. But instead of that, they have a breakout box, which you run 2 cables out of this, and it basically has 1 heavy-duty cable from the mic down to the breakout box. This mic has a movable capsule, which totally, you can go MS and you can move this any direction you want. What I found out that I really loved about this mic, if you put it in front of a drum set, it sounds super realistic, which means the cymbals aren't louder than the drums aren't louder than the cymbals. It's really balanced. Derek, the owner, had told me that some people have been using this, running different preamps to each capsule, and I was like, oh my God, that's genius. So I did API on one and a Neve on another. I put them on a guitar rig. It was so cool because they're in phase, they're phase aligned. This one was kind of on the outside of the inner cone, and then this was a little bit farther out. And when I mixed it, it was so cool to have a Neve and an API blended together on the same mic. Now, if you're doing vocals, you can run the top mic to a reverb and print it. You got nothing to lose because this one's dry and this one's wet. So if you have a singer and they want something on their voice and they have their favorite effects box or something, run the top capsule into that effects, print it, and then you got your bottom one, which is committed, and it's fine, and they're both accurate and really cool. And I think they really did a great job. Each capsule has its own setting, so I can go cardioid, figure 8 on the top. So if you turn it and make this figure 8, and this cardioid, that's MS, make them both figure 8, and then you get like that XY big bloom sound. Real versatile. Once again, under $1,000. Super killer new mic, and one that I definitely use when I can doing MS or guitars. All right, don't laugh, but this is a cheap copy of a 57. My buddy gave this to me, and he's like, dude, you got to get a pile. I'm like, why? Because it's a copy of a 57 and costs $12. I'm like, okay. I haven't tried it yet. I'll let you know how that goes, and I'll do an A/B. But yeah, this is like one of those Amazon things where maybe it's even $6. Who knows? But it looks just like a 57. This is a Loton 208. It's crazy because it's a handheld, and you're singing it from the top. But it has, once again, like their tom mic, great cancellation. It's a condenser. So if I'm over by my speakers and I want to have someone play with the speakers and I want them to sing in front of the speakers without headphones, this is the mic that you would use. It's so incredible. This mic, I used it on a session where the girl sang in the control room with me, and it was awesome. Like they were just doing a rough, but now that I'm in one room and I want to put a condenser in the room with the drums, I think this is a great option because it just sounds great, it has great cancellation, and it'd be the right mic if someone's singing right here in front of a drum set, and then it cancels out some of the drum sounds. And I did use it, and it's really great. So that's the Loton mic. This is a new mic, totally usable. Another brand new mic is Palo. This mic blew my mind. It's a Palo P414, which looks like and weighs like an AKG EB, which those have brass capsules and cost, anywhere from $1,200 to $2,200. And this mic is brand new, warranted, brass capsule. I've used it on snare, on guitar, on vocals, single overhead. Outstanding quality. And once again, it won't break the bank. These are affordable. I don't know the cost. I'm assuming maybe between $900 and $1,300. But if you want a high quality mic with multiple mic patterns that you can pretty much put it on any kind of sound source, the Palo, I love this mic. And this is definitely my friend Mike Bowski at Russian Recordings. I saw him doing the new Deerhoof record, and he had this on the snare. And I was like, dude, I got to get one of these. And so I had used it on the snare the same way. I was rewarded with a wonderful snare track that was done with a condenser, and it just had a lot of character of the drum. So P414 from Palo is a winner. Now here's where things are going to get weird. First of all, it's called an Alien 8. So you're already like, what the heck is this? So an Alien 8 is, once again, this guy, he's got balls. He just got an old design, and the 380 mic that I showed you that was really expensive is figure 8. So what Dr. Alien did is he made figure 8 top and bottom. This is in phase, that's out of phase. This is out of phase, and this is in phase. So you have this figure 8, and you put this inside the kick drum, and it's huge sounding. And I use this outside the kick drum and on bass guitar, and it really, for a few $100, you don't have to buy the very expensive Beyer 380. The Alien 8 is awesome. These are out of Australia. He always sells out on these, so if you go online and look him up, Alien 8 or Dr. Alien, buy it if he has them in stock, and you will not be disappointed. And it looks like I'm going to play some drums with these, or shakers, but these are actually drum mics. These are Loton 308s, condensers, and I know it's going to be hard to tell on the camera, but there's a capsule here and here, and you put these on the toms, and they're incredible. These have been on my toms for maybe close to a year. Prior to that, my favorite tom mics were ATH 230s. If you can go find them, they're cheap, they're discontinued. Maybe you get a drum pack for like $230. They were my favorite mics. But Loton had sent me out these, and basically after my first session, I sold my ATHs because I was just like, I had to buy these ones. And these ones, once again, I talk about making me happy. They make me so happy on the toms. It's set it, forget it, and they're incredible. If you go to YouTube Cardboard Sessions, Swollen Brain, I did them, and that's a really good showcasing of these toms because Eric Gardner did a lot of tom work. I actually have a few episodes coming out where I'm going to be able to isolate these and you can hear them. But Loton, like their other mic, they spend a lot of energy and time to get a mic right, and they're not necessarily doing it for money, and these are affordable. I think you can get a pair. I think they had them on sale for like $500 for two or something like that. This is the Sound Deluxe U95. I think they were trying to make a U87, and I think they did it wrong. I don't know what happened, but this became the Bach 195. And I think they still make these, but for whatever reason, I got an anodized black one, which I've never seen. But it is a Sound Deluxe U95, has a switch on the back that says low cut, on or off. Then it has a mode that's fat or normal. And then you have a pad. And this, minus me currently using the United on the kick drum, their FET 47, or the Alien 8 on a kick drum. Prior to that, this was my ultimate kick drum mic. So a Sound Deluxe U95, I would put it on fat mode, and then I'd put it on low cut, which, does that make sense? Like you're adding all this low end, and then you're cutting off the low end? Well, it just basically cut off unwanted boominess, but gave me everything that I want in a blooming big kick drum. So if you can find a Sound Deluxe or an older Bach U95, you cannot go wrong. And also, one of the greatest vocal mics I've had, I did Michael Lemo, which is a local artist. This was his vocal mic on all his records. And if he whispers, screams, or sings, this mic never buckled, which makes me think that maybe they did, and maybe I'm not hearing it, of how a lot of people compare this mic to a U87. I've had this mic maybe 10 years. I don't use it as much as I used to. Obviously, I have these other mics, but sometimes, you know, when my drummer Phil comes in, I just want to get a classic Manny sound. I use this on the kick drum, and it just, whew, it is so massive. Anything Sound Deluxe is really cool. Well, this is my trusty handy Shure 10-4 good buddy. What's going on? Everybody's bored out of their mind on the Manny mic locker. Let's get out of here. Where we're going to go eat at? In and Out. In and Out on Manny. Anyways, this is my 10th session relaxer. If I have a singer and they're just not getting it, I put this in their hand, I put the big mic in front of them, and they're holding this, and then all they hear is this mic, and it just, oh my God, they feel like they're the Cramps, they're Iggy Pop, they're, you know, just really, something about grabbing it and screaming in it just makes them feel so much power, and they get great performance. And then I use this mic to capture it, so, and I can blend them together. But yeah, this is one of my also little secret weapons, and if you can find them, I want to say for whatever reason I found them with that being the wrong side. I just bought an adapter that makes it correct, so you can plug it into a preamp directly. Shure makes them. Awesome. Speaking of bad boys of the Manny mic locker, this is the United 47 FET outrageous budget microphone. I mean, for under $1,000, you get basically a FET 47. And what I love, everybody says, set it, forget it. When I put it in a kick drum, it doesn't matter if it's low, high, it just sounds good. This is also can be used for toms. Elliott Smith, I think, sang into 47s. You can use it for vocals, has a great capsule. Once again, did not disappoint. Like the Twin 87s and this one, they only make two microphones. The Twin 87 and the 47 FET. This microphone is killer. Definitely look up United, and I have this mic in this locker for a reason. It's killer. All right, hold them up. What's going on here? Who broke your 57s? Well, these aren't. These are Unidine 56s. We're talking Van Halen. And speaking of Ross Robinson, his snare for Korn and all the bands, he's got vintage 56s on them. These are awesome. They don't sound like 57s. They have, I think they sound louder, and they've just got a sound, probably because of the magnets inside. But yeah, got two of them, snare, guitars. I'm stoked. Now here's something that's interesting in the AKG department. This is called a P414. And in the series of, I know some people talk really weird, like, oh, I hate 414s. I love 414s, but I'm only talking about their origins of the 414. A C12A, which is made by AKG, is one of the greatest tube mics on earth. The grandfather of this. Then they went to the EB, which is not the tube version, but the FET or the solid state version of the C12. And the EB had a brass capsule in it. People make a big deal about the brass capsule because they were replaced later with a nylon capsule. But the truth was, the capsules failed a lot. So if you see an EB with a nylon capsule, that could be factory. They literally just take them, throw away the brass capsule, put in a nylon capsule, and it's great. And they're cheaper. They sound different. This one, so it goes C12A, EB, and then when they went from EB, they went to the P48, which is true Phantom 48. The new 414s could probably work off a 9-volt battery. These ones, they need full phantom power. And these are killer mics. I had the capsule nylon replaced with the brass capsule. In a P48, I mean on the bottom of the snare, on the top of the snare, like the Peluso P414, it gives me that classic feeling of what a great microphone is. So if you can find, and you look on the top and it says P48, that is one of the greatest series of all those 414s. So look for P48, all the same features of a normal 414, except the electronics are completely different from BULS 414, completely different. So whatever they did, they got it right, put a brass capsule in it, and now you're closer to an EB. This little mic right here, that is a microphone. It's called an SM98. I was turned on to these by, it may have been Garth Richardson, but in the old days, they used to put these on toms and loud instruments. These were like the holy grail of new companies because there were condensers that run off this. You plug them into here, needs phantom power, the lavaliers, but they use them for toms. When I went and recorded with Steve Albini, the first record, and he showed me how to record, he always had these hanging over the beater. And he had one of these taped to a Buyer 201 for the snare. And I didn't know, I really didn't get it. So when I bought my first studio, I bought all the same mics. I used to tape this to the snare, but at the time, maybe now I'd hear the difference, but back then I didn't really get it. But when I put this now over the beater and I hang it over the drum, and then you blend it with an outside mic, it's incredible, it's godly. And then if I use this on bass guitar rig with a drummer in the room, once again, huge sounding. And I heard that this is the mic, and SM98 was what Rage uses on their bass rig. Also, I heard like the Muse uses SM7s, which I have an SM7, I think, in there. But for bass rig, my go-to is a Lavalier SM98 by Shure. On the beater side, hanging over the drums, taped to the drum right above the beater. SM98, and basically anywhere you would want to use a small condenser, even on a snare, this mic is incredible. Now there's different types. This is an old one. I don't know the numbers on the new one, but this is an SM98. That's it. The new ones are like SM something dash something 98s or beta 98s maybe, but those are still killer. And like any studio, of course, I've got normal 57s. You just got to have them. I love them. Got another one, so I guess I got 3. Counting the 56s, that means I got 5. This is a mic that I'm about to use. This is a Resonator by Placid Audio. I was hoping on this Manny's mic locker I would get a chance to use it, but since I was moving my studio, I haven't had a chance to use it. But I'm doing a cover of Army of Me by Bjork. I'm going to be using this on synthesizer. I'm not sure, but it's called a Placid Audio Resonator B, really super cool mic. I was only turned on to these by Dweezil Zappa. He had another one. I don't think it was a Resonator. He put me in contact with him, so I'm actually excited to use this. Probably Manny Mic Locker 6 will be the Resonator B by Placid Audio. Okay, I know I keep on telling you these are my favorite mics, but this isn't my favorite mic. This is an MA37. I did a whole song using this on vocals, on the drums, on the guitars. Just, you can walk around the studio and just be recording. Oh, you want to do banjo? You want to do acoustic? You want to do electric? Just put it above the drums, or you're going to sing in it, or you're going to put some violin on it, or you're going to play congas. Like, doesn't matter. This mic just does it all and sounds great. It's tube, and it has that sound when the sound pressure increases. You feel like this mic has character. I can't say enough about the Mojave M837. I only have one in my life. I'd like to have two, but we'll have to work a little bit harder. So that's the Mojave M837. I don't think you can have a studio without having a SM7. I don't think this is the vintage one or whatever the case. Everybody makes a big deal about it. You need a really good preamp with this. If you buy one of these and you put this in your UA, you're like, what's the big deal? But if you buy one of these and you've got Neves or you got APIs or you got old Altex or you just got a big old RCA compressor, these mics roll. I did, the Breeders record was the first time I was really exposed to these, where Kim used these for overheads, for kick drum. The Muse, I think, uses these on bass guitar. You just can't go wrong with it. And for vocals, of course, you know, they're just great. The Muse, all those songs, this is the vocal mic. You'd be shocked on a kick drum how good this sounds. And because it takes such high sound pressure to make it even the needle move on these, putting it in front of a loud sound source like a guitar is not a problem. It may even save you on your preamps. But just know that if you get one of these, even though they're a few $100, like if you go to Guitar Center, they're not really selling you these. They want you to buy the latest flavor of the month and spend $1,200. Buy one of these brand new for $400. Get a cloud lifter or get a good preamp, and you have Michael Jackson, Metallica vocals. Across the board, how many bands have used this? Probably every big cool band in the world, they've used SM7. So I can't say enough about this mic.